Hidden in the northwestern corner of Breath of the Wild's Hyrule lies a structure so massive, so hauntingly beautiful that players can't help but stop and stare. But what if this crumbling monument isn't just another ruin? What if it's actually the most important location in the entire Zelda timeline, a place that connects two games separated by thousands of years? The truth behind the Forgotten Temple will change everything you thought you knew about Hyrule's history. When players first stumble upon the Forgotten Temple in Breath of the Wild, the reaction is always the same: awe. Pure, unfiltered awe. This isn't just another shrine location or a minor landmark. This is a colossal structure that dwarfs almost everything else in the game. The temple stretches deep into a canyon, its weathered columns reaching toward the sky like the fingers of a fallen giant. Guardians patrol the entrance, their glowing eyes piercing through the darkness, warning travelers that this place is different. Most players rush through the Forgotten Temple, focused solely on reaching the shrine at its heart. They dodge the Guardian lasers, weave between ancient pillars, and collect their spirit orb before moving on to the next objective. It seems straightforward enough, right? Just another challenge in Link's quest to save Hyrule. But here's the thing: Nintendo doesn't do straightforward. Every location in Breath of the Wild tells a story, and the Forgotten Temple, its story is absolutely massive. Let's talk about what players actually see when they take the time to explore this incredible structure. The temple is built into a natural canyon in the Tanagar Canyon region, northwest of the Woodland Stable. The entrance is marked by deteriorating stone archways and those ever-vigilant guardians. As Link ventures deeper, the true scale becomes apparent. Rows upon rows of weathered pillars line both sides of a central pathway, creating a corridor that seems to stretch on forever. The architecture here is unique. Unlike the shrines with their Sheikah technology or the various ruins scattered across Hyrule that show different cultural influences, the Forgotten Temple has a very specific language design. The pillars are rectangular, stout, and arranged in perfect symmetry. At the far end of the temple, past all the danger and decay, sits a massive statue, the Goddess Hylia herself, watching over what remains of this sacred space. But here's where things get really interesting. Really interesting. Players who've journeyed through the entire Zelda series might experience a moment of déjà vu when exploring this temple. There's something familiar about it, something that tugs at the memory. The layout, the pillars, the way the structure channels your movement toward that central altar area. Where have we seen this before? The answer lies in Ocarina of Time, released way back in 1998 for the Nintendo 64. In that legendary adventure, players visit the Temple of Time, a crucial location where Link pulls the Master Sword from its pedestal and opens the Door of Time. The Temple of Time isn't just another dungeon, it's the pivotal location where Link transforms from child to adult, where the sacred stones are placed, where the very flow of time itself can be manipulated. Now let's examine the architectural parallels between these two structures, because this is where Nintendo's genius truly shines. Both temples feature a long, columned approach leading to a central altar or significant location. Both utilize rectangular pillars arranged in parallel rows. Both create a sense of grandeur and sacred purpose through their sheer scale and symmetry. The similarities aren't subtle, they're deliberately, unmistakably intentional. In Ocarina of Time, the Temple of Time in Castletown serves as the gateway to the sacred realm. Its interior features those iconic columns, the altar where the three spiritual stones must be placed, and of course, the Master Sword's pedestal in the chamber beyond. The temple's design emphasizes a journey. You enter through the grand doors, walk between the pillars, approach the altar, and ultimately reach the sword that defines the hero's destiny. The Forgotten Temple in Breath of the Wild mirrors this journey. Players enter through a grand archway, navigate between rows of ancient pillars, and progress toward the statue of Hylia at the far end. But there's more, so much more. At the base of the goddess statue, players who search carefully will discover something that makes this connection absolutely undeniable: the Master Sword's pedestal, or rather, what remains of it. That's right, within the Forgotten Temple, partially buried and weathered by countless ages, lies a stone pedestal that matches the design of the Master Sword's resting place from Ocarina of Time. This isn't speculation or fan theory. This is observable in the game itself. The pedestal sits there, empty and cracked, a silent testament to the sword's long absence. Link doesn't pull the Master Sword from here in Breath of the Wild. He retrieves it from the Korok Forest, where it's been waiting for a hero worthy enough to claim it. But the pedestal's presence in the Forgotten Temple tells us something absolutely crucial about Hyrule's history. Let's connect the dots, because this is where the timeline implications become absolutely staggering. The Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time was built in Castletown, the heart of Hyrule's civilization. It was a grand, maintained structure, actively used for ceremonies and protected by the royal family. Fast forward thousands upon thousands of years to Breath of the Wild, and Castletown is gone. Hyrule Castle has been rebuilt in a different location. The geography itself has transformed through countless eras of prosperity and calamity. But the Forgotten Temple remains. Weathered, buried partially by rock slides and the passage of time, stripped of its glory, it endures. The placement in a remote canyon far from the current Castletown suggests massive geographical shifts over the millennia. Perhaps earthquakes reshaped the land? Maybe the Great Calamity's various incarnations throughout history forced Hyrule to rebuild in different locations? Whatever the cause, the result is clear. What was once the beating heart of Hyrule's spiritual life is now a forgotten ruin. Nintendo confirmed in the Creating a Champion official companion book that Breath of the Wild takes place at the end of the Zelda timeline, long after every other game in the series. This placement means that potentially 10,000 years or more have passed since the events players experience in earlier games. That's not just ancient history, that's geological time. Civilizations rise and fall, landscapes transform, even sacred structures crumble into dust. The presence of the Goddess Hylia statue at the temple's end adds another layer of significance. In Skyward Sword, released in 2011, players learn that Hylia is the divine protector who came before the Triforce as Hyrule knows it. She sacrificed her divinity to become mortal, eventually being reborn as Zelda, the first Zelda of the royal bloodline. The Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time didn't feature a prominent Hylia statue, but by the era of Breath of the Wild, Hylian religion has clearly become central to Hyrulean religion. The statue in the Forgotten Temple towers over everything, suggesting that in the intervening ages, people looked back to the very origins of their world and recognized the goddess who started it all. Here's something that blows the mind even further. The Master Sword's journey through time mirrors Hyrule's own cyclical nature. In Ocarina of Time, the sword rests in the Temple of Time, waiting for the hero of time. After Link's adventure concludes, the sword remains as a guardian against evil. Through the various timeline splits and the countless centuries that follow, the Master Sword appears in different locations, sometimes in sacred groves, sometimes in ancient pedestals, sometimes lost entirely until a new hero emerges to claim it. By the Breath of the Wild's era, the sword has found its way to the Korok Forest, deep within the Lost Woods, protected by the Great Deku Tree, and accessible only to one who has proven themselves worthy through the acquisition of 13 heart containers. But the old pedestal remains in what players now call the Forgotten Temple, a monument to where the sword once rested, perhaps the original location where it was first placed after Skyward Sword's conclusion. Think about the storytelling implications here. Nintendo could have placed any random shrine in this location. They could have made it just another pretty ruin with no deeper meaning. Instead, they chose to create this specific architectural echo, to place that pedestal in this exact spot, to name it the Forgotten Temple. Every single one of these choices was deliberate. This is environmental storytelling at its absolute finest, showing players who pay attention that Hyrule's history isn't just a collection of disconnected adventures, but a continuous, evolving saga. The name itself carries weight. Forgotten doesn't mean unimportant. It means that even something as monumentally significant as the Temple of Time can fade from memory given enough centuries. The current residents of Breath of the Wild's Hyrule don't know what this place once was. They don't remember its role in sealing away Ganondorf. They don't recall the hero of time pulling the sacred blade from its stone. Those legends have become so ancient that they've transformed into myth, and the myths themselves have been partially lost. This connects to one of Breath of the Wild's central themes, the tragedy of forgetting. Link awakens with no memories. Hyrule has forgotten how to fight the Calamity effectively. Ancient technology lies unused because the knowledge of how to operate it has been lost. Even Zelda's powers take years to manifest because the old ways of awakening them have been forgotten. The Forgotten Temple stands as a physical representation of this theme, a reminder that even the most important places and events can slip through the cracks of time. But there's hope in this discovery too. For players who recognize the connection, who see the Temple of Time in the Forgotten Temple's bones, there's a profound sense of continuity. Hyrule endures. Despite the countless calamities, despite the rise and fall of kingdoms, despite the passage of unimaginable spans of time, the foundations remain. The same courage that drove the hero of time drives the champion who awakens 100 years after Calamity Ganon's rise.
The same wisdom guides both Zeldas, ancient and modern. The same power corrupts Ganon across every incarnation. Let's talk about the Guardians that patrol this temple, because their presence adds another fascinating layer. These ancient Sheikah constructs, corrupted by Ganon, now defend a location they once protected. Thousands of years before Breath of the Wild, the Sheikah built incredible technology to combat the Calamity. That technology included the Guardians, the divine beasts, and the shrines scattered across Hyrule. When that technology was sealed away due to fear and political tension, much of it was forgotten, just like the temple. When Calamity Ganon returned 100 years before Link's awakening, he corrupted the very Guardians meant to stop him, turning them into weapons of destruction. These corrupted Guardians now prowl the Forgotten Temple, adding a layer of danger to a place that was once sacred. There's tragic irony here. The temple that once housed the Master Sword, the blade of evil's bane, is now guarded by machines serving evil itself. Players who brave these Guardians and explore thoroughly will find the Taina Kosa Shrine at the temple's end, beneath the goddess statue. The shrine's blessing is already complete. No puzzle or combat challenge awaits inside. This blessing shrine approach is used sparingly in Breath of the Wild, typically in locations where reaching the shrine itself constitutes the challenge. In this case, surviving the Guardian Gauntlet earns players their spirit orb without additional trials. But consider the symbolic weight. Reaching the heart of the ancient Temple of Time, even in its forgotten state, is trial enough. The rewards for exploring the Forgotten Temple extend beyond just the shrine. Ancient and Guardian parts can be harvested from the defeated Guardians, providing valuable materials for upgrading armor and purchasing ancient weapons from the Akalak Ancient Tech Lab. Treasure chests hidden among the ruins contain weapons and gems, but the real treasure is the knowledge, the understanding of what this place represents in the grand tapestry of Hyrule's history. Now, let's address the timeline debates that rage in the Zelda community. For years, fans have argued about where each game fits in the overall chronology. The official timeline, revealed in the Hyrule Historia book published in 2011 and updated in subsequent releases, shows 3 branching paths created by Ocarina of Time's events: the Child Timeline, the Adult Timeline, and the Fallen Hero Timeline. Each branch contains multiple games, and each branch sees its own version of Hyrule evolve in unique ways. Breath of the Wild's placement at the end of this timeline has sparked intense discussion. Does it follow one specific branch? Does it represent a convergence of all 3 timelines? Nintendo has remained deliberately vague on this point, allowing players to draw their own conclusions. But the Forgotten Temple offers a clue. If this really is the Temple of Time, then Breath of the Wild's Hyrule exists in a world that remembers, or rather has forgotten, the events of Ocarina of Time. The geographical transformation required for Castletown to move and the Temple of Time to end up in a remote canyon suggests apocalyptic events occurred multiple times throughout Hyrule's history. We know from the game's backstory that Calamity Ganon has attacked repeatedly over 10,000 years, with each cycle forcing Hyrule to rebuild. The kingdom we see in Breath of the Wild is actually just the latest incarnation, rising from the ashes of countless previous Hyrules. This cyclical nature is fundamental to the Zelda series' mythology. The curse Demise places upon Link and Zelda at the end of Skyward Sword ensures that his hatred will be reborn across the ages, manifesting in various forms, sometimes as Ganondorf, the King of Thieves, sometimes as pure malice given form, sometimes as Calamity Ganon, a force of destruction so ancient it's become almost elemental. Each cycle brings a new Link, a new Zelda, and a new battle. The locations change, the kingdoms rise and fall, but the core conflict remains eternal. The Forgotten Temple serves as an anchor point in this swirling chaos of recurring history. Here is a structure that has survived multiple calamities, multiple iterations of Hyrule's collapse and rebirth. The fact that it still stands, battered, forgotten, but standing nonetheless, proves that some things transcend even the most destructive cycles. The temple's endurance mirrors the Triforce itself, an eternal constant in a world of change. Consider what it means for players to discover this connection on their own. Breath of the Wild doesn't hold your hand regarding lore. There are no lengthy exposition dumps explaining that the Forgotten Temple used to be the Temple of Time. The game trusts players to observe, to compare, and to remember their experiences in previous Zelda games and draw connections themselves. This approach respects the audience's intelligence and rewards those who engage deeply with the world.
The pedestal, that crucial piece of evidence, isn't highlighted with a quest marker or glowing indicator. It's just there, weathered and cracked, waiting for observant players to notice it. When someone makes that connection, when they realize what they're looking at, the revelation hits differently than if the game had simply told them outright. This is the difference between being informed and discovering something yourself. Discovery creates lasting impact. Nintendo's environmental storytelling throughout Breath of the Wild operates on this principle. The game is filled with ruins that tell stories if you stop to examine them. Ranch ruins hint at Lon Lon Ranch from Ocarina of Time. The Great Plateau itself is theorized to be the former site of the original Temple of Time and Hyrule Castle based on landmark positions. The geography of Breath of the Wild echoes Ocarina of Time's Hyrule, transformed by millennia into something familiar yet alien. The Forgotten Temple represents the pinnacle of this storytelling approach. It doesn't just hint at connections, it provides concrete architectural evidence that links two games separated by massive gulfs of fictional time and real-world release dates. Ocarina of Time launched in 1998. Breath of the Wild arrived in March 2017, almost 19 years later. Across nearly 2 decades of real-world time and countless in-game millennia, Nintendo maintained continuity through architecture and careful environmental design. This level of attention to detail demonstrates why the Zelda series commands such devoted fandom. These aren't just games that share common characters and motifs, they're pieces of a larger narrative puzzle, each entry adding new context to what came before while setting up mysteries for what comes after. Breath of the Wild could have been a complete reboot, wiping the slate clean and starting fresh. Instead, Nintendo chose to honor the series' history by placing it at the furthest point in the timeline, letting millennia of accumulated lore inform every weathered stone and forgotten monument. The Master Sword's empty pedestal in particular serves as a poignant symbol. The weapon that defines Link across countless incarnations once rested here in what was Hyrule's most sacred temple. Over the ages, the sword moved, found new guardians, new resting places, but the pedestal remains, a ghost of past importance, marking where destiny once resided. There's melancholy in that image. Power and purpose have moved on, but the place remembers, even if people have forgotten. When Link finally retrieves the Master Sword from the Korok Forest in Breath of the Wild, he's continuing a tradition that stretches back to the very first time a hero lifted that blade. The sword remembers. In the game, the Master Sword is described as the blade of evil's bane, speaking in the voice of Phi, the sword spirit from Skyward Sword, when in the presence of guardians or malice. This consciousness means the sword carries its own memories across the ages, even if kingdoms and temples crumble to dust. Imagine the Master Sword's perspective, forged by Hylia in the ancient past, wielded by countless links, placed in the Temple of Time's pedestal, witnessing the rise of the hero of time, experiencing timeline splits and reality branches, moving from location to location as eras pass, eventually finding its way to the Lost Woods where it waits for the champion to awaken. The sword has seen everything. It knows the truth of Hyrule's cyclical history in ways no mortal ever could. The Forgotten Temple, then, is a monument not just to the passage of time, but to memory itself. What was once remembered becomes legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth can be forgotten entirely, leaving only stones and silence. Yet the stones remain. They can't speak, can't explain their significance, but they endure as proof that the past, no matter how distant, was real. This theme resonates throughout the game. Link's own memory loss and gradual recovery of forgotten moments parallels Hyrule's relationship with its history. Just as Link must piece together fragments of his past to understand his present, players must piece together Hyrule's architectural and environmental clues to understand the world's deep history. The memory locations scattered across the map, triggered by photographs, show specific moments from 100 years ago. But the Forgotten Temple shows something far older, not a memory of one person, but a memory of civilization itself. There's also the question of other Temple of Time locations in Breath of the Wild. Observant players have noted that the Great Plateau features ruins that strongly suggest another Temple of Time once stood there, closer to what appears to be the original Hyrule Castle location from Ocarina of Time. Some theorists propose multiple Temples of Time were built across different eras, each serving the same purpose in different incarnations of Hyrule. Others argue that the temple was physically moved or rebuilt multiple times as Castletown shifted locations. Whether the Forgotten Temple is the original Temple of Time or a faithful reconstruction built in a later era, the connection remains significant. It demonstrates that Hyrule's architects and spiritual leaders understood the importance of maintaining continuity with the past. Even if the original structure fell to ruin, they built anew in its image, preserving the sacred design that once housed the Master Sword and the gateway to the Sacred Realm. The Sacred Realm itself presents another mystery. In Ocarina of Time, the Temple of Time was the doorway to this mystical dimension where the Triforce resided. But by Breath of the Wild's era, the Sacred Realm isn't mentioned. The Triforce appears only symbolically throughout the game, on Zelda's hand when she finally awakens her powers, in Hyrule Castle's design, in ancient iconography. Has the Sacred Realm become inaccessible? Was the doorway sealed permanently? Or has it simply been forgotten like so much else? These unanswered questions add to the Forgotten Temple's mystique. It stands as a testament to a time when the boundaries between the mortal world and divine realms were more permeable, when heroes could travel through time, when the very fabric of reality bent to sacred purpose. Now it's just a ruin in a canyon, occupied by corrupted guardians, visited only by the most curious adventurers. The tragedy of progress and the cost of time made manifest in weathered stone. Yet there's something defiant about the temple's survival. It should have been destroyed. Multiple apocalyptic events should have reduced it to rubble. The Calamity, in its various incarnations across 10,000 years, should have torn it down completely, but it stands. Battered, yes. Forgotten, yes. But fundamentally intact, its columns still reaching skyward, its central path still leading towards that altar where a goddess watches over what remains. This defiance mirrors Link's own survival. He should have died 100 years ago fighting the Calamity. Instead, he slept in the Shrine of Resurrection, held in stasis until his body healed and the time was right for his return. Both the hero and the temple endure beyond reasonable expectation, surviving through the determination of those who refuse to let them fall. The Sheikah technology preserving Link, the sheer stubborn quality of ancient craftsmanship preserving the temple. For players experiencing Breath of the Wild as their first Zelda game, the Forgotten Temple is simply an impressive ruins with a cool aesthetic and challenging Guardian encounters. But for series veterans, it's a pilgrimage site. Walking between those weathered columns, approaching that familiar layout, seeing the empty pedestal, these become moments of genuine emotion, recognition, understanding, a sense of connection across decades of gaming history and eons of fictional chronology. This is what separates great world building from merely competent design. Nintendo didn't have to include these deep connections. The game functions perfectly well without players ever making the Temple of Time link. But for those who do notice, who do connect the dots, the experience becomes richer, the world becomes deeper, and the sense of being part of something vast and continuous becomes overwhelming. The Forgotten Temple challenges players to reconsider everything they think they know about Hyrule's geography and history. If this is the Temple of Time, what does that mean for other locations? Where exactly was Castle Town in Ocarina of Time's era compared to its position in Breath of the Wild? How many times has Hyrule Castle been destroyed and rebuilt? What other ruins scattered across the landscape hide similar secrets, waiting for knowledgeable eyes to recognize them? These questions fuel discussion, theory crafting, and continued exploration even hundreds of hours into the game. Players return to familiar locations with fresh perspectives, searching for additional clues that might confirm or expand upon the temple connection. The game becomes an archaeological expedition, with each player serving as both explorer and historian, documenting discoveries and comparing findings with others. The community discussions surrounding the Forgotten Temple showcase the Zelda fandom at its finest. Detailed architectural analyses compare pillar designs across games. Theorists examine the temple's orientation and position relative to other landmarks, building cases for how Hyrule's geography evolved. Artists create reconstructions showing what the temple might have looked like in its prime, bridging the gap between Ocarina of Time's bustling spiritual center and Breath of the Wild's haunting ruin. Nintendo's developers have remained largely silent on the specifics, neither confirming nor denying the connection outright in most interviews. This silence is strategic. It allows players to own their discoveries, to feel like they've uncovered something the game doesn't explicitly advertise. When developers do speak about environmental storytelling in Breath of the Wild, they emphasize intentionality. Nothing is accidental. Every ruin, every landmark, every architectural choice serves the larger narrative.
In Creating a Champion, the official companion book released in 2018, developers discuss the philosophy behind Breath of the Wild's world design. They wanted players to feel like they were exploring a real place with genuine history, not just a game map filled with content. This meant giving locations backstories, even if those stories were only told through environmental details. The Forgotten Temple exemplifies this approach. Its story is written in stone and layout, readable to those who know the language. The book also includes concept art showing the temple in various stages of design. Early versions experimented with different levels of decay and alternative architectural styles. The final design clearly prioritized those parallel columns and the long central approach, the elements that most strongly echo the Temple of Time. This design choice wasn't made lightly. It was refined specifically to evoke that connection while still functioning as a unique Breath of the Wild location. What does all this mean for future Zelda games? Tears of the Kingdom, released in May 2023 as the direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, expands upon the lore while adding new layers of complexity. The Forgotten Temple appears again, though its role shifts. New discoveries about Hyrule's even more ancient past, the Zonai civilization, add context. Each revelation reinforces the importance of architectural continuity as a storytelling device. The Zelda series has always used recurring locations to create familiarity across entries. Death Mountain appears in nearly every game, Hyrule Castle is a constant, Kakariko Village shows up repeatedly, each time reflecting the era's aesthetic while maintaining core recognizability. But the Temple of Time to Forgotten Temple connection operates on a different level. It's not just the same location appearing in different games, it's one location transformed by the passage of so much time that its very identity has changed.
This transformation reflects reality in ways few games attempt. Real historical monuments undergo similar journeys. The Parthenon in Greece was once a gleaming temple to Athena, complete with painted sculptures and a massive golden statue. Today, it's a ruin, stripped of its decorations, partially collapsed, yet still recognizable and revered for what it represents. The Colosseum in Rome has lost half its mass to earthquakes and stone scavengers, but its outline remains, speaking to the glory and brutality of a vanished empire. The Forgotten Temple earns its place in this company. Within the fictional world of Hyrule, it serves the same function as these real-world monuments, a connection to a past so distant it's become mythological, a reminder that even the mightiest works eventually fade, and a testament to the human or Hyrulean need to build things that outlast individual lives and generations. For players seeking to experience the Forgotten Temple's full impact, the journey matters as much as the destination. Don't fast travel directly there. Approach on foot or horseback from the Tabantha region. Watch the landscape change as the canyon opens before you. Feel the shift in atmosphere as those ancient columns come into view. Let the Guardian's laser sights build tension as you decide whether to fight or sneak. Move slowly through the temple, pausing between pillars to look around, to imagine what this place once was. At the far end, spend time examining the Goddess Hylia statue. Note its size, its placement, the way it dominates the entire structure. Then look down and find that pedestal. Crouch beside it. Consider what once rested there. Think about the hero of time pulling the master sword from its stone, transforming from child to adult, beginning the adventure that would split the timeline itself. Think about all the heroes who might have visited this place across the ages, and think about Link, the champion, who woke up 100 years after Calamity Ganon's rise, who will eventually claim that same sword from a forest shrine, continuing a legacy that spans literally tens of thousands of years. That moment, when all the connections click, when the weight of history becomes tangible, that is what makes the Forgotten Temple one of Breath of the Wild's most significant locations, despite its lack of prominent quest lines or unique items. It's significant because it forces players to confront the scope of Hyrule's timeline, to understand that this adventure isn't isolated, but is instead one chapter in an incomprehensibly vast saga. The dark history implied in the temple's name isn't about specific evil events, it's about the darkness of forgetting. Cultures that forget their history are doomed to repeat it. Hyrule forgot how to fight the Calamity effectively, leading to catastrophic casualties when Ganon returned. They forgot how to operate the ancient technology, requiring Link to relearn everything from scratch. They forgot the importance of the Master Sword's trials, leaving it waiting in the forest rather than preparing heroes to claim it before crisis struck. The Forgotten Temple stands as a monument to this cultural amnesia. What happens to a society that loses touch with its spiritual foundations? What's the cost when sacred knowledge becomes buried under centuries of accumulated time? Breath of the Wild explores these questions not through dialogue or cutscenes, but through the simple existence of this weathered structure, forgotten by the people it was built to serve. Yet there's hope in Link's journey. By recovering his memories, by reactivating ancient shrines, by claiming the Master Sword, by defeating Ganon, Link doesn't just save Hyrule, he begins the process of remembrance. The champions are memorialized, the ancient technology is understood again, and perhaps, in time, someone will rediscover what the Forgotten Temple truly is, restoring its name and significance to Hyrule's cultural consciousness. This is Nintendo's genius on full display, creating a location that works on multiple levels simultaneously. Surface level, cool ruins with a fun Guardian challenge. Intermediate level, impressive ancient architecture with interesting design. Deep level, the Temple of Time, transformed by ages into the Forgotten Temple, connecting Ocarina of Time to Breath of the Wild across impossible spans of fictional history, demonstrating both the tragedy of cultural forgetting and the resilience of truly significant places. The Forgotten Temple asks players to be archaeologists, historians, and storytellers. It provides the evidence, the architecture, the pedestal, the layout, the design language, but lets players construct the narrative themselves. This participatory approach to storytelling creates investment in ways that direct exposition never could. When someone realizes the connection independently, they own that discovery. It becomes their insight, not just information the game handed them. So the next time you play Breath of the Wild, make the journey to the Forgotten Temple. Don't rush through, don't just grab the shrine and leave. Stand in that ancient space and let yourself feel the weight of everything it represents. Remember Ocarina of Time if you played it. Remember the Temple of Time in its glory. Then look at what it's become. Weathered, occupied by enemies, forgotten by the world, but still standing, still present, still serving as proof that some things endure. The Forgotten Temple's dark history isn't about destruction or evil. It's about the inexorable passage of time, the fading of memory, and the cost of forgetting our foundations. But it's also about survival, resilience, and the way truly important places leave echoes that persist long after their names have been lost. In a game about a hero waking up to a world that's moved on without him, about a kingdom trying to recover from catastrophe, about the eternal struggle between good and evil, the Forgotten Temple serves as the perfect metaphor, battered but unbroken, forgotten but not gone, ancient but eternal. That's the power of environmental storytelling done right. That's the depth Nintendo brings to world building. That's why the Zelda series continues to captivate players decades after its debut. And that's why the Forgotten Temple, despite housing just a simple blessing shrine and some Guardian parts, ranks among the most meaningful locations in the entire franchise. It's not what you find there. It's what the place itself represents, the connections it forges, and the history it preserves through its very existence. The Master Sword will be wielded again. Ganon will return. Heroes will rise to meet him. These cycles are eternal, written into Hyrule's very destiny by Demise's curse. But places like the Forgotten Temple remind us that beyond the cycles, beyond the individual heroes and villains, there's a continuous thread connecting everything, a world that exists beyond any single adventure, a history that encompasses all the legends, and a legacy that will outlast even the longest timelines. That's the true secret of the Forgotten Temple, and that's why it matters so profoundly to understanding Breath of the Wild's place in the Zelda series' vast, interconnected saga.